You're watching a Highwire Media podcast. Previously, Peter had a ring like Ringman. Peter met with Kate. Ringman wants Catherine the Great's music box. Neal was framed for ritual heist. Fowler bugged Peter's home. Neal needs time to get the music box. At the office, Peter and Neal chat about their weekends. Peter has sports. Neal had the Guggenheim. Jones says David Sullivan, a possible victim of mortgage fraud, and his daughter Allison are waiting. Peter isn't happy because he doesn't see the fraud. He pulls Neal in because 6-year-olds make him nervous. Peter cringes as Allison draws on a 515 form, but Neal compliments her artistic ability. Peter catches us up by saying Sullivan's dad died and left them the house, but before passing, took out a second mortgage. Sullivan claims his dad would never do that. Peter reminds Sullivan that he only visited his dad 4 times in the last 3 years. Sullivan blames his dad for the rift, which automatically makes him unsympathetic to me. But he swears his dad wanted Allison to have a home. Sullivan calls Peter their last chance, and little Allison gives him the picture she drew. It's of Peter, a house, and a tree. I think Sullivan is the con artist here. Peter says they'll check it out. Neal looks over the bank's notarized paperwork and presents a compelling case against fraud. Peter's concerned more about Neal's feet on the table. However, he found that the cop who first took Sullivan's complaint is now retired at 35 years. Since there's no lottery win, they meet with ex-office Herrera. He asks who Neal is since the FBI couldn't afford his cufflinks. Both sides talk at cross purposes to feel each other out, but when Peter brings up Sullivan, Herrera wonders if they are wired, but he has nothing to say. Very fishy, especially since he had an 80% closed case record. Police departments don't early retire those numbers. Peter, of course, you burned your career for this case. You're just going to walk away? And he tells Peter to drop it, but insists on leaving a very specific 476 tip for the coffee and eyeballs them before leaving. Neal calls it cryptic. I call it a great tip even in New York City. His server thanks him, off to the files to connect 476 to something. Herrera generated a lot of paperwork. Great. In the real world, that tip could take months. Luckily, we were on the USA network, so 40 seconds in, Peter gets it. It's the ID number for Federal District Judge Michelle Clark. Neal reminds us all that pursuing a federal judge is highly risky. Herrera already lost his job. Peter looks at Allison's picture conveniently left by the files and says he's in. That's right, Neal puts Mozzie on shifty judge patrol. Apparently Judge Clark was Fowler's go-to judge while he was investigating. That's not suspicious. They realize Fowler bought himself a judge. Neal plans to tell Peter, but Ma's box secrets are safer. Peter will just file a report alerting both Fowler and the judge. True. However, Neal thinks he can leverage this to get Fowler to release Kate. For the first time, Moz and Peter agree. What if she's working with Fowler? Neal says he'll know when he talks to her, prompting Moz to ask if he trusts Peter. Yeah, I trust him until I can't. Moz calls his answer zen, but suggests Neal use Peter to send Kate a message. After all, Peter did find her once. Wonder why Neal didn't think of this earlier. Alright, TV and movie fans, let's be honest. Keeping up with your favorite shows, new releases, and live events can feel like a full-time job. You got one app for binge watching, another for live TV, a separate one for sports. Before you know it, you're paying for 5 different services and still missing out on what you actually want to watch. Well, Hulu plus live TV changes all of that. With Hulu plus live TV, you get the best of both worlds. Not only do you have access to Hulu's massive streaming library, we're talking thousands of movies, hit TV series, and exclusive originals, you also get over 90 live channels, including ESPN, ABC, FX, Fox, NBC, and more. That means live sports, breaking news, and your must-watch reality TV all in one place. Plus, let's talk convenience. No cable box, no contracts, no hidden fees, just instant access to the shows and games you love, whenever and wherever you want. Watch on your TV, laptop, phone, or tablet. It's completely up to you. So if you're tired of the hassle, the high prices, and the constant FOMO when a big game or season finale drops, Hulu plus live TV is your all-in-one solution. Sign up today, cancel anytime, and start watching the way TV was meant to be on your terms. Get Hulu plus live TV now and never miss a moment. Use the link in the description. Join today. The next morning, Peter exposits 9 foreclosures Judge Clark presided over. He's interrupted by a lunch invite from Elle. sample pate. Peter's thrilled. And feel free to bring Neal. Oh, that's why you're calling. You want to borrow him. Wow. Neal's like a wheelbarrow. Of course, Peter, my wife's inviting you to lunch. Good thing is I get to come along too. Poor Peter. Although if it's goose liver pate, maybe it's poor Neal. In a product placed forward stocked with GPS navigator and blind spot warning, Neal asks how Peter contacted Kate. I'm a Fed. If I want to find someone, I do. Yeah, well, what about Bin Laden? He asked Peter to pass the message. Starting to wonder if the bottle really did mean goodbye. Peter glances at him sympathetically. My sympathy goes to Peter, who tries L for his catering surprise. I love his disgusting face. This is why L invited Neal. Why? Because he's a good liar. Best Peter line of the night. No, because he appreciates fine cuisine. Neal, which this is not, Neal has a more refined, gross face, but it's funny just the same. No one could like that. L sniffs it. Oh yeah, that does smell bad. Thank God you guys tried it first. Peter discovers the real reason we're there, and it isn't bad food humor. The cable company called about a problem and sent someone over to fix it right away. Either New York City has premier service, or someone's house was bugged. Peter uses dial back, but gets a disconnected number. That means bug. Neal rambles about a man to say near a fire exit while Peter finds the bug. Neal writes, "What's next?" Peter yells his displeasure into the bug before stomping it. They meet on the patio outside. Peter asks why Neal was suspicious right away, but Neal doesn't want to talk there. L worries about more bugs, but Neal says they can't have an FBI team sweep the house. I know a cleaning guy. He does a great job on my place. Peter says no, but L wants the house debugged right away. I agree. It's a serious breach of privacy. Peter insists on having someone he trusts watch Mozzie. L asks why, and Peter says he's on. Neal, of course, adds in a good way. L is confused even more, so when Mozzie enters, introducing himself as the cleaner and calling her Mrs. Suit, Peter's impressed with his equipment, and Moz is delightfully eccentric here, which bugs Peter to no end. Thankfully, Jones arrives to relieve him and protect L. Neal comes in, and L asks if Moz will try anything. Do you have any rare paintings or coins? Then you'll be okay. I love the banter in this episode. Just then, Moz comments on their unique Gorham silverware and Baccarat vase. I burst out laughing. I love Mozzie. L virtually pushes them outside, telling them to wrap this up. I don't think he bugged the dog. Moz, of course, amateur. Peter and Neal practically race out the door. We join Peter and Neal partway through a recap. Peter surmises Fowler needs Judge Clark for Operation Mentor. They figure he's after Peter now because Peter pulled the judge's file. Neal suggests they get to the judge first, but Peter is dogged about the music box. He asks why cons are fascinated by pieces attached to danger. Neal thinks it's their impact. Like now, he claims taking down Fowler is worth hassling a federal judge, and Peter agrees. We stop the judge from taking the Sullivan home, and then we get her disrobed. Neal and I share a say what? Neal smirks and Peter harumphs. You know what I meant? He wants the judge to flip on Fowler, which sounds great, except Fowler walks into the FBI about 30 seconds after they do. Not going to be pretty. Peter and Fowler kind of, threaten each other, and Peter mentions Operation Mentor. I would say you're not supposed to know it even exists. Excuse me. And of course, Neal, you can pin this one on me. You like pinning things on me, right? Hughes steps in and says Fowler will be working there. Fowler, oh relax, Burke. Just borrowing your phones for a little while. Writers do a good job of making you dislike this pompous, corrupt jerk, and not wait until Peter takes him down. Hours later, Peter calls a break for the task force pouring through the judge's file. Neal stays. Peter realizes he's got something, and Neal claims one of the signatures on his second mortgage is a forgery. He has Peter sign his name, and Neal expertly copies it upside down, which allows forgers to copy a drawing instead of fight their own penmanship to mimic someone else's. Thanks, Neal, for Forgery 101. Always learn something from White Collar. Perhaps the showrunners will post my bail. It's a neat trick. Don't ever copy mine again. Never again. You have copied my signature. Let's focus on the crime at hand. They are interrupted by Fowler, who smarms and moves on. Peter gets permission to talk to the judge, but makes Neal stay behind. The last time you were in a judge's chamber, you jumped out the window. Neal does an okay hand gesture that cracks me up. Apparently judges work late because he comes by at night. He politely explains the forged signatures in the Sullivan case and says he's reopening the case based on the 9 suspicious foreclosures she approved. Oddly, she asks about FBI salaries, which is not how innocent people respond. Peter's thrown straight to bribery without protest. He guesses Peter makes at most $140,000 a year. I should have gone into law enforcement, not teaching. It's a shame you don't make enough for the services you provide. For what you do, the risk you take, I think you deserve double that. Peter asks what she means, and she mentions $125,000 bonus. Does that interest you? It might. She suggests they chat next week outside of chambers. Peter agrees. Good luck on your case. I hope you don't run into a wall. Very odd conversation. After Peter leaves, she removes a video camera. She taped the whole thing. The next day, Peter recaps the $125,000 bribe. That's it. If I had known you were that cheap, I would have bribed you myself. No amount of money would have been as satisfying as catching you the first time, or the second. Peter plans to get permission for a sting. Fowler gets a call from the judge. I have to admit, he's more clever than I credited him. He planned to have the meeting videotaped. Fowler wants the tape, but Judge Clark won't let her free pass out of her sight. She wants her files sealed first, and then he can have Peter. They agree on the morning, which leaves time for some Neal razzle-dazzle. But who cares about Fowler when Mozzie and Elizabeth are bonding? One of my favorite things about Season 2 is their connection. It's great to see its inception. Moz helps Elle get some boxes down while Jones looks on. Man, help them. One box contains old surveillance photos Peter took of Elle, and yes, it sounds creepy. Elle and Peter met when he investigated an art gallery theft where she worked. Jones assumes she was a suspect, but no, how is that not creepy? Elle was a case witness, and Peter wondered if she was signal. Doesn't the FBI train them to ask questions? Law suggests he was adding Elle to the list of corporate government. How charming. Moz on his best behavior? He took to Elle quickly. Peter didn't have the guts to ask Elle out, so she held up a sign saying, I love Italian. Moz, of course, misappropriating FBI resources to follow a girl. It's been known to happen. This still falls under stalking. Moz calls him sly, and Elle agrees. He's a bit of a bad boy. Peter walks in and is a bit worried that Elle and Moz are a team now. Mozzie claims the downstairs debugged, but needs a few days for the upstairs. They can't sleep in their own room as Peter talks in his sleep. He tells Jones to drive Haversham home, but Moz refuses. He does take the pate, though. Elizabeth and Peter camp in their living room and make a date for Italian food on Saturday. Just when things get interesting, Hughes knocks on their door. He warns Peter that OPR is investigating him for accepting bribes. Peter recaps the scene for him. Hughes says there is a videotape. Fowler officially presents it in the morning. Hughes, of course, I can't protect you, Peter. Elizabeth worries and Peter heads out, saying he will fix it. Meanwhile, Neal and Moz discuss the music box and Kate. Neal says Peter did not get a message to Kate yet. That's surprising, as he received a suspicious postcard with a chess move on it. For white-collar trivia buffs, Neal lives at 5026 Riverside Drive, New York, New York, 10014. The opening chess move is D5, meaning black goes first. Moz, of course, unusual, symbolically making you virtuous white. They're interrupted by a knock. Everyone assumes it's Peter. Nope, it's a freaked out Elizabeth asking for help. Peter's at the office and the poor guy can't even get some decent coffee. Luckily, Jones shows up to support him and he knows how to use the coffee maker. I love his loyalty. He got the entire white-collar team to join him. Peter's more than respected here. He loves. Joan and Peter share a look at that screams, I've got your back. At Neal's, Elle wants Mozzie and him to break into the judge's office to steal the tape. Moz points out that stealing federal property is really dangerous. Elle doesn't care. If you don't do this, Peter can go to prison. Yeah, and if I do, I could go back. Good point. Of course, Elle, you owe him. Another good point. Neal tells Elle to rest and they will handle it. As soon as the door shuts, Neal freaks. You have any idea how we're going to do this? Moz grins. As a teen movie once said, I bow to the king of scams. He uses pioneer props to explain that Fowler hired a courier to pick up the tape. Moz will stall the driver. Neal asks, how? Of course, with my obvious charm. Do we have a backup? Neal will wait in a blind spot in a courier uniform Moz created since there aren't many 24-hour tailors. Neal is particularly fussy this episode. Suck it up, prima donna. Next, he will pick up the tape and demagnetize it, then change out of the uniform and hand the blank tape to the real courier. Not bad for a spur-of-the-moment plan. Lets them stay incognito and out of jail. Neal asks if it will work, but Mozzie just shrugs. I think it's brilliant. The white-collar task force looks at the judge's file. Every scam was a dead person estranged from their family. But aside from that, Judge Clark is the only constant. The loans averaged $350,000, but they don't know where the money went. Follow the money, folks. It's a good plan, except Fowler sealed the files. That leaves only Herrera as a witness. He declares the judge is protected by powerful people who will go after Peter's friends. Still, Peter needs to find the money to take her down. So Herrera says he got canned after asking for a search warrant on the judge's chambers. Peter hands him coffee and leaves. Instead, we join Neal and Mozzie mid-scam. As Ray, the driver, unlocks his van, Mozzie steps out to insult him. You were supposed to deliver a very sensitive package to me at my house. Instead, you gave it to my mother. Neal slips by while Ray is distracted. Ray asks what in the package, and Mozzie yells, that's none of your business. True, but who isn't curious? He's going to take everything from me, man. The free dinners, the free laundry, the free basement. Is that what you want? Poor Ray. Mozzie really sells this. You want me penniless in the street, shirtless? Mozzie starts taking off his shirt while Ray protests strenuously. I laugh so hard tears form, which is why I appreciate the break to the judge's assistant, who must think all messengers are brainless. Get off my screen, annoyance. Neal gets the packages planned on the street. Ray protests that Mozzie is yelling at the wrong guy. Mozzie calls him Ray Collins, but he is Ray Hoffmeister. Mozzie apologizes and shows Ray H the fist of fury he'll use on Ray C before skedaddling. Ray H shakes his head in disbelief. By this time, Neal has dumped his uniform in the trash, gives the package to Ray, who mutters apologies for the delay. It was a good scene. Just when I think the hijinks end, who should appear but the judge? Neal plays hide and seek around a column and calls Peter. Peter talks about possible evidence in the judge's chamber and wants to meet. Neal sees the judge and Miss Annoyance leaving and does a little breaking and entering. Luckily, Annoyance leaves a bobby pin on her desk. He makes it look like someone broke in and joins Mozzie to spy on the judge. New Yorkers must live in their own world, because in St. Louis, Dallas, anywhere, if someone breaks out binoculars and a microphone on the street, you notice that. Mozzie relays what's being said and razzes Neal on it. Not opening the safe. Neal says no time. The judge plans to move the evidence tomorrow at noon to a deposit box at Certified National. Apparently, Miss Annoyance is on the scheme because she doesn't ask what the judge is talking about. Neal and Mozzie are very proud of themselves. For some reason, Fowler talks to the judge alone at the office. As he leaves, Peter asks if they're playing good cop, bad cop. Neal says no. You need a good cop. The judge plea bargains to fraud in exchange for ratting out the bank personnel. Peter, she's taking advantage of the system. I hate when people do that, now that I work for the system, of course. Or one for the good guys. They share the news with Sullivan, who owns the house free and clear now. Peter hands the foreclosure sign to Allison and tells her to color on it. Good cheer abounds as Mozzie finally finishes sweeping Peter's place for bugs too. They are eavesdrop free, but their wiring is a museum bound. Mozzie can hook them up with a guy in copper, but Peter stops him to say thanks. Elle tells Mozzie she'll walk him out, and he says, thanks, Elle. Peter's worried about their informality. Neal agrees. Mozzie trusts Elizabeth, and that's why their relationship works so well. Whenever Mozzie and Elle are on screen together, you know there's good times ahead. Peter calls the case a mixed win, and Neal agrees that Fowler will be back for the music box. Peter smirks because he knows Neal doesn't have it. Oh, look at that, telling the truth. Did it hurt? Neal, of course, sulks a little bit. He decides turnabout is fair and asks what Peter heard from Kate. Her message? See Robert. Robert is her dead father, so they take a trip to the cemetery. Mozzie arrives for a Kate intervention. Neal says no thanks and finds a yellow paper flower in a bouquet at the grave. Peter asks if he's getting anything, but Neal lies. When he says they may be right about Kate, everyone has to be suspicious. Peter walks away, but Mozzie knows exactly what the flower means. Fortunately, he doesn't share with us before we fade to black. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode every time I see it. I love the humor, most of all, and also the building of Mozzie and Elizabeth's relationship. They are both great characters, and I love how they complement each other. Of course, adding Fowler was a good step in the overall storyline of the season 2. This episode answered key questions, and yet still left us hanging. What's so important about the music box? Why is Fowler involved? Is Kate betraying Neal? And most of all, what is so special about that yellow paper flower? The answer to that question makes me smile. And with that, let me know your thoughts on episode 9 of season 1 of white collar. Give me your thoughts. Is there something we missed? Something we should have discussed? Let me know. Give us a thumbs up if you like our video. Hit that subscribe button down below. Of course, hit that bell notification button to be notified of future videos. And if you're watching our content and you like our content, please do consider subscribing. We do look at our analytics and we do see most of the people that watch don't subscribe. So easy to subscribe. Just hit that subscribe button down below. And with that, I'd like to thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.